Aloha and welcome to True Story with Lori, where we talk to people about real things they're pushing through. And I'm super excited about my guest today, Bella Lynn Thompson. Her book is Sudden Widow. There's her cover. Sudden Widow, a true story of love, grief, recovery, and how badly it can suck. Her book's available on Amazon and different places. But Bella, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, of course. So I like the way you started your book, which I loved. It's a great. I really felt like you wrote it so plainly, right? So real that people can understand it and watch your process, and it's really going to help some people. I believe because you just got right to it. Um, and so I like the way that you started, with a little bit of backstory. It sounded like you really did have a great marriage. You guys had a lot of fun. You were married for a long time. You started your family. Every marriage isn't perfect. I love when you guys had a fight and he's like, "I'm going to move in with your parents," because that's that was awesome because that's just how close and how good of a family you had created. And then right up front, you say, because you had built, that life, that today he still provides me joy. You said that kind of right in the first chapter, right up front. So just in one way today, how does your husband still provide you joy?
When I think about him, I have a smile from ear to ear. He was funny. I still am madly in love with my husband. I know that sounds ridiculous. It doesn't mean that I don't have room for someone else or can't have a full life, but he was funny every second of the day. And when I see my children, they remind me of him. So my son just went out to get a haircut for graduation, and he's a wise guy, and he sounds just like my husband. So there's no way that he's not living within all of us
Yes.
and providing us strength and joy all the time.
Yes, nice. So it's just, I'm so glad, that you see it that way. You see the joy rather than like the sadness. I'm sure that's there, underneath still, but you're able to see the joy. So I love that. And so it's the day, right? You knew something was wrong, but I guess he didn't want to believe it or thought it wasn't that big of a deal. You guys are getting ready for a wedding. He goes ahead because he's part of the wedding story, and that's like where it happens, right at the wedding. I'm totally freaking out right now. I'm so embarrassed. I've read your book.
It's
But I
exactly
can't.
right.
But
It
I
happens.
can't remember his name. Paul. I wanted to say Paul.
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 It happened right before the wedding.
Yeah.
So actually, they were taking pictures at the bride's house. The bride was elsewhere with the groom right before the wedding,
Hmm.
and the church was just about 5 or 10 minutes away. And it doesn't say it in the book, but he actually was moving a car. They both have classic cars. I still own my husband's classic car,
Hmm.
which I refer to as a paperweight throughout our marriage.
Yes.
That's another joke. But they both have classic cars, and they were moving cars to get to the wedding in these classic cars. That was so nice. And he actually had a heart attack over the wheel. And that morning, kind of to step back a second, he just didn't look like himself. For a minute or two, he said, I just don't feel okay. But um, it wasn't such a big deal for any of us. My kids were there. He looked like he was just like perspiring a little bit.
Hmm.
And like he sat down for a second and then he said, I feel fine. And I was the one kind of as the caretaker of the wife, like, let's just run to the hospital. Let's run to, and my husband, as much as we had a nice marriage, we did. He was stubborn as a
Hmm.
mule. And I have no problem saying that. He'd laugh his tush off right now if he heard me say that, because it's just there's no way that I could stop him from going to stand for his friends on
Yes.
this day unless he really knew he was going to have a heart attack and die.
Right.
So
Yeah.
he would have either died in the driveway while I was standing behind his car, or
Mm-hmm.
he would have went to the wedding and died. So,
Yes.
that's just the case with him. So, he did die right before the wedding, and it was crazy. It was nuts. I didn't find out till I got to the church, and we were all dressed up. And then you read. We went to the hospital, and it was really shocking. It was shocking for me, and really hard to tell my kids. That was one of the worst moments of my life.
Yes, yes. So that was going to be like my question. I mean, what I mean, here you're getting ready to go to a wedding, of all things. And this happens. And so now all of the sudden you're in the emergency room, like with your husband who has just died. I mean, you talk about how healthy he was, and like there was no indication that like a heart attack was like the furthest thing that you thought could have ever happened. And all of a sudden, here you see him. What was that like?
Um, it was surreal. It was
Yeah.
surreal while I was running into the emergency room, and they let me right in. Nobody stopped me, let's put it that way. And I was
Mm-hmm.
asking, where is my husband? Where is my husband? And I kept saying, I got to him, and I am a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So they immediately said, you can't come in, you can't see him. He did pass away. And I was just in shock. And I just kept walking back and forth saying, my beautiful husband's dead. My beautiful husband's dead,
Yeah.
in shock. And luckily I actually had an interview for that same hospital system. And I said, listen, I just interviewed here. Please let me in to see my husband. You don't have to clean him up. I would have been in an emergency room anyway. And they really were gracious enough to let me in immediately. And
Yeah.
I fell on top of his body and just started crying. I mean, I was in shock, in tears. And I guess a part of me just kept thinking to myself, what do I tell my kids? I was nerve wracked at the thought that my kids were in their little suits, dressed beautifully, hairs cut,
Yes.
looking adorable. And I have to go tell them their father isn't alive anymore. And that was my biggest worry while I was holding on to him and almost asking him as if he was alive, what do I tell the boys? Honey, what do I
Yes.
tell them? How do I say this?
Right. Did you feel like you got an answer when you were?
I didn't feel like I had an answer, but I felt like, driving to the hospital, and I could cry saying this. I knew that I knew when he died. I felt a presence come to me, and it sounds wacky, and I don't care. I am a scientist, I'm a PhD, and I just felt this calm come over me, where not in my head, but in my soul or my
Yes.
heart felt
Yes.
him say to me, it's over and you're driving our kids, because was certainly trying to be safe, but I was trying to drive quickly to make it to the hospital on time.
Yes.
And, I knew I only had minutes for various reasons. And a calm kind of came over me at that moment, like he was within me or inside me or holding me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that he helped me make it to the waiting area and talk to my kids. He helped hold me up through the next couple of days. And when my kids would say, how are you standing? And I would say, I wouldn't be standing without your father holding me up. For the
Mm.
whole first year, I would say to them, well, your father's holding me up. That's why I'm standing.
Wow.
Uh, to kind of say he's here with us and he's here with me.
Mm-hmm.
And if any part of him could be here, he would be. So
Yes.
I know from the bottom of my heart and soul that he's here with us and he's
Yes.
holding me up.
Yes.
And I think that gave them so much peace, kind of to say, well, he is around, like he's
Mm-hmm.
not with us, but he's around. And my mother, like to have, I guess, me have so much faith that he was with us, I think helped them a lot.
Yes, yeah, and I understand what you're saying and believe it. I mean, you touched a little bit later on entanglement and that kind of thing, which I'm glad you put that in there. And so you really could sense. I mean, you didn't use the word presence, and I don't know if that's exactly what you mean, but you just knew, like in your soul, that he was there with you, and was that a beautiful thing?
It was. It really
Yes.
was a
Yeah.
beautiful feeling, a beautiful thing. It didn't stay forever.
Mm-hmm.
Really the first 3 months I felt, I guess, that he was with me. I don't know if I would call it a presence, but just around. Like I felt
Yes.
like, and then throughout the first year here and there, and then it kind of really did dissipate. I don't feel him all the time anymore. A part of the book says, I hope he's at peace, and he should be kind of where he is
Yes.
and at peace and not here. And if you really love someone, you want them at peace.
Yes.
I hope he's watching us somewhere or can see things, but I want him to be at peace.
Yes. Yes. Love that. Love that. And so you explained kind of the first year. I mean, the word that you use is a fog. You're just in a fog. And one of the things that I really appreciated about your book, that you really stressed, that I hadn't like heard people say before, and maybe just because I haven't heard people say it, was that all of the sudden you have to do everything now by yourself. When up till that very last minute, you had a partner that you shared like everything. I mean, that's I don't think that sits in, right, unless it's happened to you. But speak about that, how all of a sudden it's everything now you have to do.
It was, I do think that's one of the reasons I really wrote the book, because people don't realize my life changed so much. I was in a private practice. Obviously, as a psychologist, what I do is neuropsychology. It's a little different than just straight therapy, but I had to give up my practice. There was no way I could be there for my children. And obviously, as a psychologist, I felt like their feeling of safety needed to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly I had two kids in travel baseball leagues. I had to be at two places at the same time constantly. I was doing all the food shopping, and I was trying to grieve, which is exhausting. It's
Yes. Yes.
physically exhausting. And I had two kids I was trying to support while they were grieving.
Yes.
It was incredibly difficult. And it is a testament to any widow, not me
Yes.
personally, to be able to kind of lift yourself up and make it through every day. For that first year, my son was sick. I didn't even put in the book how sick he was that first year and how many doctor's appointments we had to go to and how many things. It is surreal, and it's still surreal sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not the we had specific gender roles, I suspect, not totally, but somewhat. And I still don't know how to talk to a baseball coach. My kids are, I still don't know what I'm doing. I'm always saying, I'm not a good baseball dad. And I joke about it and laugh about it, but I still stink at it, because the way that my husband would have interacted would have been totally different. But I do everything. And I have an autoimmune disease, and I had multiple surgeries. It was
Yes.
really hard.
Yes, because on top of now having to do everything, you're grieving, just the weight, the magnitude of that, and then your own surgeries and everything. I mean, just what a year. And you really did a good job on just conveying like the magnitude of kind of the weight that you were carrying, and really just trying to be there for your kids. And I know that you also had a lot of help, especially in the beginning. You know, people come in, and so you talked about baseball. I loved that some high schoolers came and played ball with your boys. That really touched my heart. That was lovely. Yeah.
They were wonderful. I live in a beautiful community on Long Island, and we had a lot of support. And they still are in touch with my kids, but they stayed in touch. They're kind of out of college already, but they stayed in touch with my kids for years. My kids played district baseball, which is, that you could go to the Little League World Series, and they only made it to small parts of that. But they came to support both my sons. It was really beautiful. I'm so grateful, and I feel blessed.
Yes.
Even though what happened, I feel so lucky I had so much support and come from such a beautiful community.
Yes. Yeah. And so I also like the way that you 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 realize that you still have to get up and live. You know, you can't. You just couldn't. You couldn't give yourself like the luxury of not getting up and living life anymore. And so I love that you said that, and that, you know, you made a point to tell us that all but 3 days, like I think maybe during the first year for sure, every day you still got up and took a shower and lived life, and realized that even with this hole now, that there's still things that you know have to be done. So I just thought that was a great testament to your strength, and your resolve, and your just your resolve to be there for your kids, you know, for the boys.
I
Yeah.
think that I felt like I had to be a model to do that. I had to show them that life goes on and that everything is going to be okay. It's going to be different. I never invalidated that they had a hole missing in their heart. I never invalidated they're still heartbroken to this day,
Mm-hmm.
in some ways, but I always said we have to move on, and there's still beauty in life. And I try to point that out to them all the time as well. It might not be quite as beautiful as it was for me. I think it can be even more beautiful for them. You know,
Mm.
they have their whole lives ahead of them. And I'm not saying mine isn't, but mine is different since kind of the love of my life isn't here, but
Yeah.
they're going to have the love of their life. They're going to, so I also kind of try to remind them that life is still beautiful. There's so much
Yes.
in it.
Yes, yeah, and that was probably made help them make leaps and bounds, you know, in the healing process, rather than not talking about it because it's too painful. You kind of just talked through the pain, talked in the pain. This is a quote. You said, "The overwhelming responsibility of being in charge by myself made me feel as if I was in a tiny boat that was rapidly filling with water." Because it's a little further in the book, you list the things about insurance, you know, doctor's appointments, all those things that would have been shared, those things that are not front in your life, like cooking, eating, shopping, you know, the day-to-day things. Insurance, how often do you think about your insurance, you know, those things that could really slip by. um, you
You really,
pointed that out.
yeah,
Yeah.
you really, I mean, so part of the end of my book, what you're talking about, is kind of
Yes.
like a guideline for
Yeah.
people who are newly widowed, because if you miss deadlines, my husband held the insurance. I know it sounds ridiculous. To keep that insurance, we had a certain amount of, maybe 90 days to get to his business, you know, where he worked, and make
Mm-hmm.
sure that we wanted to keep it. If you can really become so within that fog, cloudy, not thinking, the days go by and you don't even realize how much time has elapsed. So you really need a trusted person to just hand off your mail to, know that things are being taken care of. And I know that sounds very ridiculous and very practical, but it's so important.
Yes.
Um, and so, you know, you don't think about all those things. I did a lot. I was kind of the alpha in our relationship. So I made a lot of decisions and I did a lot of those things. But if I wasn't, it would have been even harder. But I had a lot of help. So people were opening my mail. And the first 5 weeks, I was less in a fog than the rest of the year, because I was still in shock. So I was
Yes.
able to work. I worked, you know, sometimes up to 90 hours a week while my husband was alive in my practice. Was able to work these 15-hour days and get all of that done. And
Mm-hmm.
then I kind of collapsed. I still took my shower. I still went to the gym. I still did everything for the kids. But when the kids were at school, I never took a daytime nap. I was sleeping sometimes during the day from just exhaustion.
Yes.
Um, so, you know, it is a lot to do. And I still find it overwhelming at times, I have to
Mm-hmm.
say,
Yeah.
as being the only parent.
Yeah. I mean, clearly, and so that kind of goes out to all the widows, right? With or widowers, with kids, and I think a key kind of lesson right there is find some help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. You know, people will come around in the beginning, but if you need more help, just ask. You know, it's there, for you. Um, and I really liked the way that you just continued to build your kids up. You know, you would tell kids challenges aren't there to break you; they're there to make you stronger, and all of that. So, I just felt you really taught them, modeled for them, showed them how to rise up in the middle of tragedy, and so therefore anything, everything, right? Yeah, because it will make you stronger. The other thing that you said, which really was very touching to me, and I had not thought of this before, was you hold your kids' pain, along with yours, and so you started going to kickboxing, and you had just all of this. I'm just going to use the word energy inside of you to get out, and so even your kickboxing instructor said you were aggressive. And I know in your book, I think you tell us you're tiny. You're like really petite. I'm thinking in the kickboxing instructor's telling her she's too aggressive.
Kickboxing instructor was a little scared of me. I think widows are different. I really was angry at the first year or two, and I think I was angry because of a lot of things. I think that's part of grief, and I wasn't angry every day, but I was almost angry at times at my husband, like, how dare you leave me with these kids? Like, how dare you? And I would talk to him, I think. And I also, that's one of the ways that I grieved over that first year, especially in the second year. And my kickboxing, I'm 5'2", I weigh 120 pounds. I work out a lot. And my kickboxing instructor used to, joke with me saying, you're hitting too hard, take a step back. And, it's funny. I took my son to kickboxing. You do end up holding their pain because, that saying, you're only as happy as your saddest child is so true. You live through your kids and you want them to be happy. And before we went on, my son is graduating high school on Saturday. I knew I was going to cry. And he's been very strong about it and very wonderful about it. But, over the last month, he woke me up and said, I can't believe Dad's not going to be here, Mom. Yeah. He was crying. And, there is nothing to say to that. It's not, I let him have that. He is allowed to cry about it. He is allowed to mourn. What people forget is that you mourn the whole future you would have had with that person. So part of it is on holidays or on a special occasion, you mourn that person's not there. And that's psychologically part of grief that people forget. Yes. It doesn't matter if it's 10 years, if it's 20 years, if it's 1 year, you're mourning that. And I think I really wanted that to resonate in my book as well, because people will look at me and say, well, it's been 6 years. Like, why is it still bothering him?
Yeah.
And I want to just I do tense up and I just say, oh, well, it's okay. It's not for me to explain to them. It's for them to experience whenever, and I hope they never experience it, right? I'm glad they don't understand it.
Right.
But, it does come up, and I think that, I think it's all good anyway, and I think it's a testament that we did talk about it, and my son can tell me that.
Yes, yeah, and I did that. That was another part in your book that really stood out to me, was you're grieving the future that you're not going to have now. And the moments in this graduation, of course, it's a big moment, but you talked about it, maybe it's the same son. He had to teach himself to shave, right? That's what dads do. Dads teaches their sons to shave. And so it's the moments that you notice, that you notice. If Dad would have been there, they would have had this cool thing, and it would have been a great memory, but it might not have carried a lot of weight. But now that it was missed, you kind of really understand what a big deal, those moments are. So kind of back to the kickboxing thing. I love it because you do have a great sense of humor, and that's in the book as well. Your sense of humor just comes through loud and clear. And so also one of the reasons, you set the goals to just help you heal and move forward each day. You wanted to exercise because you knew, just knew at some point, someday, that someone's going to see you naked.
I still use that line all the time. I'm like, People, like women will say from town, you exercise so much, and I'm like, you don't have to worry. Like your husband sees you naked. Somebody else might see me naked one day, and I'm terrified. My husband obviously saw me have a baby, and whatever imperfections I had, my husband was beautiful. He just kissed them. He
Yeah.
loved my soul, and
Yes.
you know, um, obviously thought I was attractive for whatever reason. So it is scary. It is scary. I've tried to date more than once. It says it in the book. I
Yeah.
just tried to date again over the last 2 months, and stopped. But tried, and I
Yes.
will go back out there again. It's tough,
Yeah.
but it is funny, and people say I have a little bit of a twisted sense of humor, and I
Mm-hmm.
think I do.
Yes.
Um, it helped me a lot that first year. I joked a
Mm-hmm.
lot.
Mm-hmm.
My kids would say, "Can't you get us another dad?" And I would say, "What do you, like, I'm going to go to Walmart and pick one out. There's a dad aisle. Are you kidding me? Like, how do I do this?" It did help the first year to lighten the load a little bit and to
Yeah.
remember to laugh, because
Yes.
even death, you have to laugh every
Yes.
day.
Yeah. There's that was like there were so many little points in your book that I was just yes, of course. And it just kind of came to me in a different way right now. But your boys didn't ever have a problem like with you dating, or another kind of man coming into the scene. I know early on they said it's okay, but I was wondering, like, just right now, um, if that was their way of holding your grief. If that was their way of saying, "Mom, you can heal too," or whatever. I just thought that was really beautiful because it seems like that is a hard thing, to bring a new man or a new woman in when there's kids involved. So that was actually a little bit surprising to me that they were okay with that. Yeah.
In truth, they were okay with it the first year, and the second, third, and fourth year, they didn't want. I think they would have been fine with me dating. They didn't want anyone to tell them what to do. I mean,
Yeah.
they were obviously cheap. They didn't want me to tell them what to do, so they
Yes.
didn't want to.
Yeah.
But in reality, they really never met anyone because I never brought anyone home. And now, more than ever, I think they would love me to meet somebody, because
Mm-hmm.
I never thought about it the way that you just said it, Lori. Like, maybe it would help. That's a way that they're holding my pain. I don't think they want me to be alone the rest of my life. I think
Mm.
they are worried about that, and they want me to be as happy as I can be. And I think they see me sometimes as, you're not invited to couples dinners anymore, and those things after being a widow. It's just a little known fact for married or coupled people or partners. I don't want to even say in any, same sex, whatever. You end up going out as twos in a lot of
Yes.
ways. And,
Yes.
and that stops after you're a widow in some ways. And people don't mean it. They're not trying to hurt you. It's just not as comfortable.
Right.
And I think they see that happen, and they just keep saying, like, you should find someone, Mom. We'd love it if you found someone.
Yeah.
They can't tell us what to do, but you can find someone.
Yeah, that's really sweet. And the just kind of the way you described about, no longer feeling comfortable or like you fit in, or people get weird, um, because they don't know what to do either, right? And I love the fact that you were so honest that some women don't want another, like a pretty single woman around their man. I mean, that's just true. And so
It is
it's awkward, to even attempt to try to do that, right?
I mean,
Yeah.
definitely. And some people will surprise you. I mean, some of the people I thought were pretty close to me that would know me and know that I wouldn't be interested in their husbands really did shy away from me because I am in good shape, and maybe they're
Mm-hmm.
not right now, or whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
It's usually someone's own insecurities.
Mm-hmm.
So I never took it personally. I just said, okay. And as I said in the book, I wanted to show my husband was gorgeous, drop dead gorgeous, made
Yeah.
me look not attractive at all. So where am I going from there? I'm going to date your husband who I wouldn't even be attracted to, just
Yeah.
not my thing. I'm really happy for other people, and what they have. And I would never wish anything. I guess I just couldn't hurt people like that. I would never do it.
Yes. No, that's not cool. but it was just one of the things that you noticed that started kind of happening in your circle and the people that you know. I loved all of your dating categories. Is so great. Let's see. Well, I wrote. Let's see, what did I write? People say you'll find a companion. Oh, so people will say to you, you'll find a companion. And it's like I love your response. Um, well, do you want love or great sex? I've totally butchered all that, but
No, I basically said, like, who wants a companion? I had like the love of my life. I had great sex. I had, this romantic, wonderful, I don't know if I should say this on the interview, but we were still texting each other, like sexting each other the night before he died. So we
yeah,
had a very lively relationship. Maybe that's
yes,
the best way to say it. And, we were really still attracted to each other, and we didn't have the perfect relationship. I definitely wanted to kill him, but we were sound in many instances. And when people say, well, you can have a companion, I say, like, I'm a 90-year-old widow. I'm now 52 years old. I don't get great sex anymore. Like, I don't
I
have like
know.
a life anymore because I'm a widow. I that's not okay anymore. It's not something I would talk to my kids about, but I'm allowed to have that. And people forget, like, the word widow has such a connotation of this older person who kind of should sit back. And my culture is Italian, and my grandmother would tell me to wear black and stay home.
Hmm. Yeah,
She
yes,
that's what widows did in those
yeah,
times. My parents certainly don't, but you know it's funny, and some people think that. And just getting back to death, it's it's a phenomenon I can't understand as a psychologist, that death happens every day, but people still are so uncomfortable talking about it. I think grief awareness is something we all have to be just a little more mindful of,
hmm,
in allowing, even your stepbrother is allowed to grieve what he lost for
yes,
the rest of his life.
yeah,
And it's okay. And he can talk about it, and he can just be supported and heard.
hmm,
And really, that's all that's necessary. And to kind of cut someone off, it's almost like an amputation, cut someone
hmm,
off
hmm,
from that feeling that's always going to be there, or not acknowledge it can still be there after 5, 10, 20, 30 years. That's just not the case. It is still there. It's okay. We manage it better. Your
yes,
brother manages it, your stepbrother managed it beautifully.
yes,
I manage my grief well, but it's
yes.
there every day.
Yeah. Gosh, that's such a. Usually at the end, I'll say, "Is there anything that you want to finish up with?" That was so beautiful that you manage the grief every day. But so just kind of in closing, the time's coming up. How do you, like, physically, like in your body, I guess, and how do you feel today, like 6 years later?
I think I feel it really depends on the day. In all honesty, my book is, if nothing else, raw, authentic, honest. I think some days I still wake up. I never knew this was possible, in tears. I didn't know you could wake up crying until after my husband died. And many days, yesterday I had a great day. I love what I do for a living. I love helping people. I love posting on Facebook every day and thank my followers, because I feel like when I get up in the morning, part of my job now is to say something either validating for other people who've had a loss, or inspiring to make their day better. So I love doing that. So in a lot of ways, I wake up in, even if I'm having a rough day, I might post about something that I'm feeling, but I think I feel lucky that I'm still here to help others. I feel very grateful for that. And I still feel sad that my husband's not here. I do. Is it devastating? It's not. I manage my grief, I think, well, but I'm sad he's not here. But I feel so lucky I had him, so grateful for 21 years of love that most people never get.
Yes. Yeah.
And I try to hold on to that when I wake up in tears, and I try to hold on to, what can I do for other people to make them feel better today?
So beautiful. Such a healthy way, to get up and to move forward. I really appreciate your book. I want you to stick around, Bella. But here's Here's Bella's book again, Sudden Widow. And I love that it's a plate, it's a plate that's shattered, because that's what happens. It's available again on Amazon, and I know you have a website. I'll put that the website up, with the video. So this is such a great resource. If you know anybody, that has just become a widow or a widower, or you're just going through some kind of massive grief process, this book is really going to help you get through it and make you feel like you're not alone in all that. So I really recommend it. It's very well written. It's honest, but not in a hurtful way. It's just honest in like a real way. And so thank you for watching, and go buy the book from Amazon, and we will see you again. Aloha.
Thank you.